Genesis 360 begins its campaign for the invisible frontline. We all applaud the frontline health workers, collectors, among others who work day by day to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. But there's also another first line, anonymous, invisible heroes who perform the essential task of keeping hospitals, supermarkets, offices, and homes clean, a front line that fights against the virus day and night. However, many of them are undocumented. They do not receive any government or private aid and are heroes left to their own devices. Genesis 360 advocates their inclusion for these workers to finally have the necessary documentation so that they receive the assistance they deserve. Genesis 360, so that the invisible front line is included. May we all see and applaud them for their work. Genesis 360, connect your senses.
Hey guys, Stefan here, host of After the Whistle. I'm back with some more NHL trivia for this week. Thank you guys for tuning into Genesis 360 to watch After the Whistle. We will be back next week from 8 to 9 p.m. But until then, let's get into our trivia. So, first question, NHL trivia. What player currently wears number 19 for the Chicago Blackhawks? Leave your answers in the comments below and we will let you know if you got them right. What player wears number 19 currently for the Chicago Blackhawks? And that answer is Jonathan Toews. Question 2. How many Canadian teams have never won the Stanley Cup? How many Canadian teams have never won the Stanley Cup? How many Canadian teams have never won the Stanley Cup? There's actually 2 teams that have never won the Stanley Cup. Okay, question 3 is a little bit of a play on question 2. So which Canadian teams have never won the Stanley Cup? So now you guys have a little bit of a hint. You know that there are some Canadian teams who have never won a cup. Now we want to know which ones. Which Canadian teams have never won a Stanley Cup? The answer to that question is the Vancouver Canucks and the Winnipeg Jets. All right, question 4. In what year was the first Stanley Cup awarded? A, 1880, B, 1915, C, 1893, or D, 1906? In what year was the first Stanley Cup awarded? 1880, 1915, 1893, or 1906? The answer to that question is 1893. So the Stanley Cup itself was actually commissioned in 1892 by Lord Stanley of Preston, but the first cup was awarded in 1893 and it was actually called the Challenge Cup. So it wasn't even called the Stanley Cup playoffs or anything like that. And question 5, this is also another question about the Stanley Cup. How long does a player's name stay engraved on the Stanley Cup? For 20 years? Or 30 years? 52 years? Or forever? So to be more clear, A is 20 years, B is 30 years, C is 52 years, and D is forever. So choose whichever one you think is right. Leave it in the comments below and hopefully you guys get it right. How long does a player's name stay on the Stanley Cup? A, 20 years, B, 30 years, C, 52 years, or D, forever? Surprisingly, the answer to this question is C, at least 52 years. So they leave players' names on the cup for at least 52 years and then they think about removing them. just to make more space as more champions are awarded. The cup needs more space because they can't keep making the cup bigger because it'll get to a point where it's just too big. So they actually have to remove these names, and then the rings that they remove end up going on display in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. So you can find the old winners, old player names from way back in the day, late 19th century, late 20th century, 19th century. You could find those names on display at the Hockey Hall of Fame. So if you're ever there, go check that out. So thanks for joining us on another trivia session. Stay tuned for Francesco and Adam's trivia. They'll be posting on the Genesis 360 Facebook page as well. And of course, please tune in next week to After the Whistle on Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. on Genesis 360. We'll see you then.